Now, if you're a young executive moving from an entry-level job into a entered-level job, normally the car of choice would be some sort of B-segment saloon. Now, from Toyota, that would have come in the form of the Vios, and no Vios was more coveted than the flagship TRD Sportivo. Now, TRD stood for Toyota Racing Development, and of course the Vios TRD would look a little bit more aggro than its regular siblings. But like an esteemed colleague of mine put it, TRD might as well have stood for Taipan Racing Design, because you'd see them a lot in Subang Jaya and they didn't really have any more pep than its non-TRD brethren. Things have changed, however. TRD is no more, replaced with Gazoo Racing, or GR, and the Vios TRD-Sport is also gone, now replaced with the Vios GR-Sport. Now, unlike its TRD predecessor, the GR-Sport does claim to have a little bit more spring in its step compared to its lower Vios models. But there is still a lingering concern. Is this body kit and these rather pretty wheels writing checks that the rest of Vios cannot cash? My name is Aiman Abdullah, this is MalaysianMotoring, and this is our review of the Vios GR-Sport. Now, for the GR Sport treatment, there are very significant changes up front. So you get LED headlights with bulb type indicators and an LED daytime running light. You get a more aggressive front bumper with this dark chrome element here. And overall, everything works together to give it a face that looks very similar to the GR Yaris rally homologation vehicle. And trust me, that is definitely a good thing. So aside from these faux air intakes here, there's also a fog light nestled down there rather neatly. Down the side, you can see the continuation of the body kit with the side skirts, which now come replete with a little silver badge that says 10 speed for the CVT automatic. That's not very cool. This GR badge, however, is very, very cool, as are these black wing mirror caps and black door handles. Like I said earlier, really sets off the side of the car. These visors are not standard, these are optional. What are not optional, however, are these wheels. These are 17-inch alloy wheels done in jet black, and they look stunning. I'm not the biggest fan of the Vios. I don't really like B-segment saloons in general, but I have to say these wheels make this car look really good. Now at the back, the body kit continues, so you have some black elements here to help reduce the visual bulk back here. You have a couple of rear fog lights, which as a Vios driver must be on at all times. You also get a black lip spoiler, which is very prominent, which sits above these LED combination taillights. No changes there at all. Now in the boot, before I go, notice the number plate holders with the GR badging on it, just so that you know that this is a very special Vios indeed. Now in the boot is one of the Vios's party pieces. The Vios has always had a very generously proportioned cargo bay, and it is exactly the same with this one. No changes to report there, and the rear seats do fold 60/40 for extra practicality when needed. But this is a Vios GR Sport, and let's not talk about practicality, let's talk about other things. And we'll do that inside. Now, the inside of the Yaris GR Sport continues that rather aggro exterior. You get these GR seats, which are leather and suede combination with perforation, with red bits in the perforation and more contrast stitching down the side. That's pretty cool. You also get a unique steering wheel in the sense that it's leather wrapped, just like some of the other Vios models, but you get contrast stitching some more. And then there's a bit more contrast stitching on the doors, and you get a GR stop-start button, which is kind of cool. The rest of the cabin, however, is very similar. You get unique floor mats, but that's it. Everything else is exactly the same as you'd expect from the Vios. You have single-zone climate control with the actual buttons here, no touch-sensitive nonsense. You get a relatively small infotainment screen, but at least it does come with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Unfortunately, the USB port is on the screen, so you have to leave your cable hanging out here like this, which is rather ugly. You get a couple of cup holders here, you get bottle holders in the doors, you get some piano black plastic here. Overall, the interior looks alright. It's not very imaginative or very pretty. It does okay, but in terms of material quality, it's rather poor. Everything in here is some form of hard plastic, which at this price point is not really that acceptable, especially given that Prodo Myvi also packs the same kind of materials, and that's rather much cheaper. You also get an armrest, but see, this is set up broadly in my driving position, and this armrest is so far back that there's literally nothing that I can do with this. This is pointless. You do get an electrochromatic rear mirror though, which is nice. The wing mirrors fold. Yeah, that's about it. Now, in terms of other sort of interior bits, the rear seats are rather accommodating. However, you do lose the suede. Back there, it's just leather. In terms of space, it's not bad. Head and legroom is not bad, even sitting behind myself. Although, as per usual, it's best for 2 adults, not 3. You can do 3 in a pinch if necessary, but don't do it for too long. You can fit 2 child seats back there because there are 2 ISOFIX mounts on either side. And although you don't get rear aircon vents in this car, you do get rear USB ports, which means you can keep devices charged up. Now, the thing about the Vios GR-Sport, of course, is that it's all about the drive, which is exactly what Toyota wants me to do. So I guess we better get to it then. Now, behind the wheel of the Toyota Vios GR-Sport is quite an interesting experience. So the thing about the Vios is that because it's meant to be a very wide appealing product, the ride and handling in this car is meant to appeal to a broad market. So it's meant to be more comfortable and plush than it is necessarily engaging. And of course, it's always been the issue with Toyota's TRD variants. So for example, the Vios TRD Sportivo, for example, used to look very aggressive, but it didn't drive any better or indeed any worse than the cooking variants. Now, things are different with the GR Sport, however, because now there is actually a unique suspension tune for this car. So according to Toyota, the GR Sport is now 20% stiffer, both in spring and damping rates, than the regular Vios variant. And as a result, this car does ride a little bit stiffer than the regular models. That said, however, as I said earlier, the Vios is kind of known for being very comfortable and very plush. And despite the 20% increase in suspension rigidity, the overall comfort of this car has not been compromised. It rides over lumps and bumps pretty well, although it does set off the drive recorder quite easily. But that said, the primary ride in this car is excellent, though the secondary ride is where the biggest changes are obvious. Now, as I said earlier, I wouldn't describe this car uncomfortable at all. In fact, what they've done to this suspension, I think, is perhaps the best suspension tune for a B-segment saloon currently on the market. As I said earlier, the primary ride in this car isn't crashy, but the secondary ride allows this car to stabilize and settle down very quickly. And as a result, you can drive this car with a degree of confidence that cannot be said of its rivals. Even the Honda City RS and City Hatchback RS do not drive with the same degree of plantedness as this car does. Then, of course, there is the matter of the powertrain. So under the bonnet is the same 1.5 litre engine paired to a CVT automatic gearbox, which has 10 virtual ratios. Now you also get paddle shifters behind the wheel for additional control over these 10 virtual ratios, but again, they are still virtual nonetheless. So the amount of play that you get from them is still relatively limited. But overall, it's a pretty decent tune. This engine is not the most raucous thing. In fact, if anything, this car's powertrain is tuned for economy. And but thanks to that CVT automatic gearbox, it means that this car can really make full use of the powertrain and get the RPMs exactly where it needs to be as and when it needs it. So in this car, as I've been driving it around for 850 kilometers now, in fact, never once have I felt that this powertrain is lacking. I am a huge fan of forced induction engines, but even then, this car has convinced me that there is still a place for small, naturally aspirated engines like this. Of course, a turbocharged 4-cylinder would be a better bet, but you know, beggars can't be choosers, and as far as I'm concerned, this 1.5 litre has plenty of poke. And when you don't want to drive it around like a hoon, you can hit eco mode and you can get pretty decent returns. Now, like I said, I've driven this car for about 850 kilometers since I picked it up, and the average over that time, over 21 hours and 45 minutes, has been 7.4 litres per 100 kilometers. In fact, on some long drives in the middle of the night when the roads are empty and so on, I can actually get this car to do less than 5 litres per 100 kilometers. And bear in mind, this is not without me driving like an old
grandmother. I actually drive this car quite spiritedly because I make full use of that wonderful suspension tune, and it's been a very impressive thing to have. On top of that, the refinement in this car is pretty good too. It's only well above motorway speeds as wind noise and road noise start to creep into the cabin. Talking about road noise, of course, the GR Sport rides on 17-inch alloy wheels wrapped in Toyo tires. Now, these tires are geared towards performance and not necessarily rolling refinement, and as a result, I feel like there is a little bit more road noise intrusion than there is in other models, other Vios models. But it's a small price to pay, because once you overlook that, driving on the motorway in this car at motorway speeds is a very satisfying experience, again, thanks to that ride. Now, in terms of ride and handling, like I said, this car handles brilliantly, but it's not all rosy, because unfortunately, the steering wheel remains the weakest link in this equation. There is absolutely zero feel from the steering wheel, and because of that, it does mean that while you may feel confident the car can carry speed through corners, some of that confidence is eroded again from the steering wheel. But of course, I understand that Toyota couldn't really do much about this. To go into steering wheel tuning and stuff like that, that requires a certain degree of expense, and I don't think UNW Toyota, or indeed Toyota Motor Corporation, were necessarily willing to do that for the humble Vios. But if you overlook the steering in terms of how that contributes to the overall driving impressions, honestly, this is a very impressive car. Another thing letting the side down, however, is safety. Now, Toyota claims that Toyota Safety Sense now envelops almost the entire range, and sure enough, this car does come with pre-collision warning and blind spot monitoring, as well as a 360-degree camera, which I must admit is perhaps one of the best systems I've seen on a car within this price point. However, it's not all roses. This car does not come with cruise control, let alone active cruise control. It does come with lane departure warning, but not lane keep assist. So it kind of detracts from that overall sort of impressed feeling that I've walked away from this car with. I am very impressed with the refinement. I'm very impressed with the presentation of this car, but the lack of, or rather the inclusion of the active safety systems means that as a family car, it's slightly more difficult to recommend. There are cars out there that offer a more comprehensive suite of safety systems, the Honda City RS being one of them. Now, ultimately the question boils down to, would I recommend this car? Now, for very, very keen drivers who need a car that will do 90% of the work and still be able to give them a little bit of a giggle factor on 10% of the occasions when they decide to take on a back road or when they have a weekend to themselves, then yes, I would most certainly recommend the Vios GR-Sport. This car is an excellent steer, far better than I expected it to be. And as someone who has owned several compact executive saloons with a sporting edge to them, driving a car with a certain degree of engagement is something that's very important to me, and I feel like that particular itch has been scratched with this car, which, trust me, took me by total surprise. Again, I approach this thinking it's just a Vios with a tarted-up body kit, but it really isn't. It drives really impressively well. However, if you're the kind of buyer that puts a greater emphasis on safety, or in fact greater emphasis on fuel economy, then perhaps you'll be better served by vehicles like the Honda City RS with its unique hybrid powertrain and more comprehensive suite of active safety systems. But ultimately, if a Toyota is what you want, and if a Vios has your heart, then I am pretty glad that I can say that the Vios GR-Sport is definitely the best Vios that money can buy. It's really impressive to see just how the Gazoo Racing brand has trickled down into more humble models like the Vios, and it's done so very impressively. I feel like models like this will truly convince buyers that the Gazoo Racing badge is more than just a marketing gimmick, and that the Vios Challenge is more than a marketing gimmick. This really does mean a significant change for Toyota. They really do want to be a brand that makes cars that are good to drive. And good to drive means for everyone, not just for those well-heeled customers who can afford to buy GR models like the GR Yaris and GR Supra, or in fact the GR86 if that ever comes to Malaysia. This is a very impressive machine. I certainly look forward to seeing more Toyota GR models on the market. Anyway, that's been our review of the Toyota Vios GR-Sport. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell icon so you're notified every time we make a new upload. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. All the links are in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. Take care, stay safe, jangan bodoh.